They tryna turn Trenton into Baby Flint. Been signs by depression on the billboards ever since. 100 years ago we was lynched. Now they use germ warfare to kill us. I'm convinced, got the evidence. I look around and it's evident. Then go down to City Hall and see so much negligence. Real art is intelligent. A true artist sends messages that speak to your intelligence. They fought and died so I can do my thing. Not to get drunk and high or join no gang. I will not let none of you die in vain. For my people I bang, bang, bang. My ancestors been through so much pain. I don't let them die in vain. My ancestors been through so much pain. I don't let them die in vain. I rep for you in everything I do. I rep for you in every place I go. I rep for you in everything I do. In every place I go. They say post-traumatic slavery disorder's fake, but I just tell them all to wake up. Everything we went through, what a way down a rape, bro. Isn't all genetic makeup. So I am my ancestors from block to block. Let's build like it's Tetris. We must unite, link up like a necklace. They fought and died and we disrespected. So I come to correct it. The legacy they left I protected. We only think about self and neglected. You're African but yet you rejected. No. My ancestors been through so much pain. I don't let them die in vain. My ancestors been through so much pain. I don't let them die in vain. I rep for you in everything I do. I rep for you in every place I go. I rep for you in everything I do. In every place I go. I do. I go.
Booyah! Welcome back to another edition of New Freedom Exchange, your cultural expression for social dignity and community empowerment. I'm your co-host, Brother Dean, here with...
Assalamu alaikum, Sister Marsha.
Assalamu alaikum, everybody, and walaikum assalam. It's your boy Imam Bilal Hassan here with Brother Dean, Sister Marsha. Of course, Sister Marsha looking very vibrant as always with the beautiful kimars.
What about me, Aki?
Oh, we look good too, Aki. We look good too, Aki. We try to look good, man. We try to compete with Sister Marsha, man. We try to keep up first swag.
That's not competition.
That's never.
Don't worry about it. Nobody with that. That's what the Jamaicans say. Nobody with that.
Oh man.
Leave it where it is.
Yeah, so if you are all tuning in from wherever you are, please let us know where you're tuning in from, your city, your state, your country, so we can shout you out.
Oh, country, international.
We might go international. It's internet, World Wide Web, so we are technically going international. So if you are tuned in from wherever you are across the world, please put in the comments below. We'll shout you out. Shout out to Brother Abdul Shakur, who tuned in earlier to our restreaming of the Jummah Convention from 1995 in Detroit, Islamic Convention. Nice. He said, enjoyed the airing of the Imam for the Jummah earlier today. He said, thank you. And he's tuned in from Tampa, Florida.
Okay.
So shout out to the Tampa, shout out to Florida. On the check-in. Yeah, and other Floridians on the check-in. And please like the page, New Freedom Exchange. Share this stream to your friends and your family. And also subscribe to our YouTube channel where we are actually going live from as well as we speak. New Freedom Exchange. So how's everyone doing today? Sister Marsha?
Pretty good. This week was kind of smooth. I mean, deadlines as usual, but it wasn't too hectic. So, alhamdulillah. How about for y'all?
Yeah, it's been good for me as well. It's starting to rain over here. We didn't get no equal beloved forecast, man.
Come on, man. Come on.
I was going to pop on my phone like severe weather. I'm like, hold on, what's going on? Bilal ain't say nothing.
I gotta be on top of this, Aki. Come on, man. But no, the week is good. Been somewhat busy getting everybody back to work. Those who want to work. Some people are still, collecting them checks. No problem, But there's work out here for those who've been looking for work. That's what we do.
Right.
So nothing wrong with collecting them checks, Aki. If you collect them checks, man.
You cut them.
I mean, come on, man. We're looking for we're looking for our $2,000 stimulus, man.
In fact, it's funny that you mentioned that, right? Because I was listening to they was talking about how they're going to like increase the federal minimum wage to $15 an hour, right?
For the
So
whole,
it's supposed to reach. It's supposed to reach. Yeah, it's supposed to reach $15 an hour by 2024. So each year, at the beginning of the year, it goes up $1, and it started about 2 years ago. So we keep track of that at my job too. Like every January, we got to make sure that the budget can support the fact that by 2024, the minimum wage will be $15.
Right. Wa alaikum salam, brother Khalid. Y'all seen in the building.
All right, Imam Justin.
They say
that cookbot today was fire.
They say he gave fire. He cooked at the rostrum, man. You gotta restring that joint, man.
Imam Justin, I see you.
So he was coming with the hot fire, man. So we can definitely check out the brother, man. You know what I mean? Wa alaikum assalam. Thank you for tuning in. That's Newark in the house. Brother Khalid, where you coming from? Drop in your comments where your brother Khalid's coming from.
It was from an island. Remember he shared with us. Oh, yeah, that's right. You were absent.
He's from.
Yeah,
it's Saipan. Is it Saipan?
Yeah, I think it's
Saipan. It's international. Yeah. Yes. So no, I was absent. In my absence.
You get excuse. Don't worry about it.
I'm saying, but things have been going good. Pretty good. He said, "Alhamdulillah, that's what we do." That's right, Yasin. That's what we do. We give a fire at the Russell.
Excellent. We had an excellent broadcast with him last Sunday. I think it was.
Yes, there was. It was last week. That's why I was. That's the episode I was absent.
Yeah, we got some beautiful feedback, brother Mustafa. Appreciate
beautiful feedback. Beautiful feedback. Shout out to Imam Musa on the check-in. Wa alaikum assalam, Imam Musa.
New York in the
always, New York is in the building. So let me just briefly just say that everything's been going okay so far. So far, so good. Just been dealing with making sure my mom's rehab has been going as good as it can go. She is making progress steadily, day by day, recovering from hip replacement surgery. And, the doctor did have some good news. The orthopedic surgeon earlier in the week, we went and he said that the bone and tissue was starting to form there in the area where they had the surgery and different things like that. So, everything is going good. She's getting outside, walking around, just getting some exercise. And she's doing our home exercise, which is important too, because she only gets physical therapy. The PT guy only comes twice a week, so she has to be consistent throughout the rest of the week, to help make sure that everything don't get stiff, because you can easily get stiff after a surgery procedure like that. So, the faster, the faster recovery time, obviously, if you're younger, but it does take a little longer, as you age to recover from a procedure like that. So, other than that, everything has been pretty good. Can't complain. I'm excited for today's episode that we have with the continuation of our series, Birthed into a Nation, Growing into Community, with our special guest, Sister Sajdah Sabree, who we will be bringing on very momentarily. And we would like to give her proper diligence. What is that, Aki? What is that? Bean pie, man? Pizza, man? What is that? A sandwich? Cake? Come on, this Ak shows up with cake to the screen and doesn't want to share. So anyway, and it's not. And it's, by the way, that's not New Freedom Pie, people. So don't get too excited.
This is the bean pie cheese pineapple upside down cake. What y'all talking about?
From who? From you? That's what y'all created? That's what y'all made? Y'all made that?
Yeah, the children was busting out in the kitchen, man. They're getting a little special treat.
Is that exclusive? That's gonna be off to the market soon,
brother? Well, take it easy, man. Finish what you were saying, brother. Please.
Okay, I'm gonna take it easy. Okay, we don't want to tease the people. So we have Sister Sajdah Sabree in the queue, and we want to give her a proper diligence by reading off her beautiful bio, and we have Sister Marsha here who's going to do the due diligence with that.
Okay, so Sajdah Sabree is a second-generation Muslim African-American born and raised in the original Nation of Islam in the community of Imam W. Deen Mohammed. Sajdah is a alumnus of Muhammad's University of Islam, where she was taught by some of the best and most professional teachers, one of whom was the late Dr. R. Zakia Muhammad, author of Mother of the Nation. That book was really good. Sajdah attended MUI from 1971 until the school's closure in 1975. Sajdah is the third of 7 children born to brother Charles 24X and sister Maryam Sabree 17X. Her Muslim history began at the famous Temple Number 7 in New York City under Minister Louis Farrakhan and later Imam Ali Rashid. Sajdah's fondest memories of her life in the Nation of Islam are attending school at MUI, the impeccable morals of the members, the orders and rules, and having other family members join the nation. And then she writes, my Aunt Iris and Uncle Junior. As a preschooler, she loved turning around in her chair and watching the potential new Muslim Nation of Islam prospects come in and be given proper clothing to wear in the temple to attend a meeting. Sajdah remembers visiting all the Muslim businesses that catered to Black communities, such as Brother Fruit, the Salam Restaurant, Steak and Take, and Your Muslim Bakery. She says, we live in a world built by and for Black people. And although our world was only a few blocks in Harlem, it was a paradise that is completely unimaginable today. I would not change my childhood for all the gold in Africa. I felt loved. I felt safe. The mighty F.O.I. I felt proud. In 1975, at age 7, Sajdah, along with her mother, brothers, and sister, made the transition in the great Islamic evolution led by Imam W. Deen Mohammed. The change from the Nation of Islam to Al-Islam proper was not too difficult for her because she was so young and came from the same background as Imam Muhammad. I did miss all the pomp and circumstance, she says, and strict rules. In fact, I cried when the chairs were removed from the 3rd floor to make room for a proper musalla. Sajdah holds a bachelor's degree in business management and a master's degree in education and leadership. She also holds several certifications in teaching and administration from the New York City Department of Education and is certified in teaching English as a second language. Currently, Sajdah is revising her first novel, Changes, as well as her first cookbook. And without further ado, we'll welcome our sister in. Assalamu alaikum, Sister Sajdah.
Alaikum salam.
Good in here, man. Good in here, man. Come on, man.
So nice we had to bring it back twice.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
How are you today, sis?
I am great. How is everyone else?
We're doing well. You look beautiful.
Thank you.
Yes, the gleaming, beautiful, the beautiful gleam, the beautiful glow. So we're very grateful. We're very grateful to have you here, sister. Yeah, right there. That's good. We're very grateful to have you here with us tonight, sister, and to share your story with us and with our audience and with those who are not very much familiar with the Nation of Islam and the transition from the Nation of Islam to the community of Imam Deen Mohammed. So, as we read your very lengthy but very extensive and very dope, pardon my vernacular, but very dope bio, we always have our guests reintroduce themselves the way that they would like to introduce themselves. So, for those who for a snippet, give us a snippet, a sneak peek. Who is Sajdah Sabree? If you had to answer someone in 1 minute, who is Sajdah Sabree?
First of all, I'm a Muslim woman. I'm a mother, divorced, single mother of a beautiful daughter. Educator, even though I no longer formally work for the Board of Education, I'm still an educator. Singer, writer, and just all around wonderful person. My friends, what's up to all my girls that checked in for me? That's all to say.
Wow.
Good stuff, good stuff. I'm a singer too, but in the shower, sis. And in my car, right? in my car too. I know people be riding by me like, that girl having a whole concert in her car. Yes, she is. And y'all leave me alone. So I want to know a little bit more. I mean, like Bilal said, we did read the bio and I kind of just touched some highlights, but I do want to know more about your upbringing in the Nation of Islam. And specifically, I'm interested because we've had these conversations previously with other members of your family, but they were male members of your family. And so I'm so interested to hear about your experience as a female, you know, coming up in the Nation of Islam as a little girl and then coming into, you know, obviously growing and developing and maturing and being Muslim. Because, you know, sometimes our stories are very different because we're Muslim and we're women or we're girls at that point. Yeah.
Well, it was an excellent upbringing, I must say. Although we were poor, we lived in the projects, we didn't have much money. The Nation of Islam for me was life. I mean, that was all I knew. I, like Imam Muhammad, I've never been anything else but a Muslim. I don't know any other kind of world but Islam. And there were 7 of us. We all grew up together. There were, like I said, there wasn't much, but there was love there. My parents met in the Nation of Islam. My father joined. Well, actually, my mother's cousin joined first. My Aunt Vivian. I call her Aunt. She's my mother's first cousin. Like, you know how Black folks do. My Aunt Vivian joined her husband, William, I believe in 52. Please excuse me, Aaliyah, if I got it wrong. But that's my other cousin. So my mother was a person who, she left church at 7 years old. She never really believed in any of that. She didn't even believe in Santa Claus until, you know, because she said she found out about Santa Claus when she was about 7. And my grandparents, you know, my grandmother was like, okay, you want to be slick? No toys for you. Then she was like, oh man, why did I do that?
Right.
I really believe in that. My parents grew up in Jim Crow. They were born in 1931. So they're like, they could be my grandparents actually. And I'm thankful for that because I know about their whole, you know, the 40s and the 50s and all of that. And my mother was always a studious person, always reading, very beautiful woman. Always, I mean, and my aunt used to tease her because they would be like guys, you know, young men coming to the house to see her and she'd be walking by with a book like whatever. She never cared about that. To her, it was more important to be smart and moral. She was like the moral queen, just very, very ladylike. She would never even yell at us. She would just do this thing where she did this soft voice and torture us like, now, Sajdah, that you're not supposed to do it. And I'd be like, oh my God, beat me. It's
right. Just get me already.
That kind of a person that she just loved morality. And so when her cousin Vivian, they moved up to New York. She moved up to New York from both of my parents are from North Carolina. But my mom came up after college. My dad came up here when he was 4. And they were raised by he was raised by his cousins and his mother. His mother was a domestic worker, my grandma Jackson. And, you know, my mother graduated from college, Elizabeth City in North Carolina. She came up here and she would stay with her cousins in Connecticut, but she never would go to church or anything. So my cousin Vivian, her husband actually, William, came and said, you know what, I want to take you somewhere. I think you really like this place. My mom said, I don't like nothing. So I don't care about no religion, whatever. You can take me where you want. I'm not going to be in this. So she came. She said the first time she came, you know, I forgot who she said was preaching that day. And she said she didn't want to join. She was like, okay, it's nice to say all this stuff now that I believe, but I'm going to come back again and see if they're still saying this. So the next time I believe Minister Malcolm was speaking, and she said, she was sitting next to the sister, and the sister was like, oh my God, look at all these gorgeous brothers in here. It's so fun. They had a lot of F.O.I back there. There's a lot of men in the community. And my mother was like, who cares? You hear what he said? The white man's the devil. And that's what made her join. So my mother came, like I said, Jim Crow. They had real racism. They didn't have like, you know, like Chris Rock said, you can't ride, but they had racism that was bad. Where white people could come up to you and say anything. And you know, even her grandfather, she called him Papa, he killed a white man in the street for stepping on the back of his shoe. Because at that time, a little bit before the turn of the century, if you were black and a white person walking on the sidewalk, you had to walk in what they call the gutter in the street. You would do it. And so they kept stepping on the back of his heel and said, "You got one more time." And he took his chance. And then my grandfather was like, he ended it. And they sent him up north, and then he came back when he was about 20. And I said, Mom, they didn't run over the house and lynch somebody. She said, they didn't mess with them. They're what they call them bad N-words. They mess with them Simpsons. So they kill you. And they wouldn't care when you think twice. So Papa never talked a lot, but he would kill you. So they didn't really bother them. So my mom grew up in that kind of situation. So she was already a militant. So when she joined the nation, it was just for her, it was just like, wow, all the morality she believed in, all the neatness, the good people. My father had already joined before. And the way they met is that back then, people would, if you came in the masjid, at the time it was a temple, called the temple, somebody introduced you to somebody. You weren't allowed to be single. That just was, it's not like it is now. When you came to the door, they grabbed you. You have a husband? Do you have a wife? That kind of thing. And they would match you up with people. And that's how they met. They got married in 64 on July 4th. 63 on July 4th. And from then on, we were all here, and this has just been my life. My mom was, disciplined and all the stuff about cooking, and she taught me all the old skills, sewing, putting on a button, all that kind of stuff. And my dad was the manager of the salon restaurant at the time. He liked cooking, he loved that, but he was more, my mom was really like to herself. My dad was very outgoing, very affable, very friendly. Everybody knew him. When he would take me to school, everybody was like, Brother Charles, all in the ghetto. And I'd be like, wow, that's my daddy. And, my father, he introduced us to music. The funniest thing about being in the nation, like people say, well, you weren't Christianity, you didn't like this and that. Why do y'all know Christmas songs? Why are you always singing? The first thing I remember is Nat King Cole song, Merry Christmas. That's the first song I ever heard in my life. And my dad would bring, I don't know if y'all remember records, but probably you don't. We had this huge, back then you had a record player, which looked like a piece of furniture, almost like a buffet. And the record would be inside, and you pick it up, put the records in. And he played all kinds of jazz, like Max Roach and Miles Davis, Dizzy Gillespie, mostly jazz. And my mom hummed around the house, and we just became musical, and with the onset of TV, with the Jacksons and all, we just loved music. My most favorite memory about being in the nation was definitely the school. The school was, I can't even imagine anything like that today. I remember the first day of school, exactly. My father had walked me to school, because it was only about maybe a couple miles maybe a mile from my house. And he took me in, and I had been there all my life. I knew all of it, but I never went to the school because I was too little. And so I was about 4, and he took me there, and I looked around, and I was like, who are all these people, and why are they here? And then he ducked out. So when I turned back around, he wasn't there. I was like, what? And I just let out a scream that was so loud, I lit up the whole hallway.
Right.
And just a quote from one of my favorite movies is Forrest Gump. And he says, I don't remember being born. I can't recall being born, but I can recall the day I heard the sweetest voice ever. And that was for me, Dr. Deen Mohammed. She was my first teacher after my mother. And she just had the sweetest disposition, the kindest face. And she got down to my level. And she said, honey, you can't scream like that. Look what you're doing. I had the whole line crying at that point. And I was like, what do I do? She was like, you're at school now, honey. You're going to have a good time. You're going to love it. Her voice was like, honey, I can't even replicate it. And by the time the school was ended, I was so happy. I was yapping on like a little chatterbug. I was like, oh my God, I had fun. I did this. And I got home, and Mustafa and Hakeem, my older brothers, they had already gone to school a couple of years before me. And they were like, how? I was like, I love it. Her name was Sister Ramona at that time. Sister Ramona is the best. We have the best class when we did this, we did that, blah, blah, blah. And I was just so excited and so happy. And it's lasted all through my career at the MUI. I never felt bad. I would get up in the morning before my mother, put on my uniform, because I wanted to go to school, I think there's a picture that somebody has, but I wanted to push that picture because I was one of the earlier people in school. And in the beginning, we just wore scarves, a jumper, blouse, and some tights. So that's like the early school. This is 1971.
Wow.
And MUI is the Muslim
University of Islam.
Okay, correct. Thank you.
Yeah. So I mean, when as you're telling the story, I'm just like in the moment, and I'm like trying to envision all of that whole experience for you. Especially you speaking about the school, and for me personally, like trying to recreate that for children now. To hear you tell the story, it just gives me life because you tell it with so much vigor, and I'm sure that experience to be amongst your own and to feel that love and to have those people pouring into you has to be something that, even though you described it, I'm sure that the words that you're using don't even do it justice, because I can just imagine it. I can see colors, and you know how somebody tells a story and you just see it so much more vividly than what they're saying. I feel that from you as you describe that experience. So inshallah, I hope that across the country we can recreate that for our children. Yeah. So I'll jump in with a bunch of questions. So I don't want to go ahead of my co-host, but you know me, like I'll have 1,000 questions. So in terms of transitioning, and I guess we'll go in as we're talking, we'll go in and out of your experience, Nation of Islam versus making the transition. But talk to us a little bit about the transition, because if I recall in your bio, as the transition was being made, you were still a young girl.
Yeah, I was about 7 years old when it was over. And it ended in a way that just, to me, just shocked me, because I never really, like I put in my bio, that one of the things that was different about my life and growing up is that we were given what they call lessons, catechism, things like that. And even though I was 4, certain things were just not logical to me. I just never believed it. I never believed F.O.I Muhammad was God, ever. It makes sense to me that you were saying you can't worship a white man on a cross, but you're giving me another white man in a suit. And I would just ask. I would come to school, and we had a front desk, and you would have the Army like Muhammad there, and the flag, and they should have something to come in as we came inside. And I just always would ponder, and I would just go people, brothers at the front desk, and I would say, oh, brother so-and-so, why is Allah wearing a suit? And they wouldn't even think, they would say, that's it. Interesting, sister. Like, they never thought about it. Then the next step, I said, well, why is Allah reading the Quran if he wrote it? And I'm 4, 5. I'm not like trying to be, I'm just acting like I don't get this. It doesn't meld into who I know Allah to be. So it was like, it didn't make sense to me at all. But I listened, and I know I was never disrespectful, but the beautiful thing was I was around adults, my parents as well, who never stopped me from asking questions. They never chastised me. Oh, you believe in it? It was like, oh, okay. Well, study some more, and maybe you'll find out. And so because some things never made sense, at around the age of 7 or 8, I just said, you know what? I believe in Allah. I know he's not a human. I know he's not a man or a woman. I believe in Allah. I know you're there, you're out there. And it wasn't a formal shahada, but it was like between me and Allah. I believe in you, and I believe in what you've given us. So when I was about 7, I think we had gone to Savior's Day, I believe it was, when he passed. And we were sitting up in these, I think at the Armory, my mom and my brother Hakeem, that's one people, for some reason, that's one people I remember. And like a screen came down, because the whole day they kept saying Bilal Muhammad was dead. And my mother was angry as a wet hornet. My father didn't say anything. He was just like silent. And we went, and I remember them saying, you know, the Bilal Muhammad has passed. And like my whole everything just shook. Like, what does that mean? I didn't believe in any other stuff, the mothership, but I did believe that the Bilal Muhammad was never going to die. And that's something I believed. I don't know why, but I believed it. And because I had the opportunity, even back then, when I was about 5, they used to always say, everybody stay in your seats till the messenger leaves, and security would run out and everything. And I said, Mom, I have to go to the bathroom. The bathroom was behind us. So I knew she wouldn't know. I ran downstairs because I wanted to see him. I ran all the way down the steps, and we sat upstairs to do the thing called temple, and then he came down with security. He was so little that he was like surrounded, but I stood there and I saluted him, and he just like got a kick out of that. And he saluted me back, and I was like, "Wow, I'm the messenger." So for you to tell me he's dead, it was like, what do you mean?
Right.
After that, the next thing was the school closing. When the school closed, you couldn't tell me. That's like telling me my grandmama's dead. Like, what do you mean the school? That's my life. Like, what else is there if there's not Muslim school? And also the funniest thing is I didn't know any other Black people besides my family and the Muslims. I didn't know like Black people in the street. And like people would think, oh, you're in Harlem, you hear cursing. They wouldn't curse like that, like they do now. I didn't hear any curse. Like when my mom and I would go, my favorite time was when we would go the Sunday meetings, which we were all white. And my mom would have the cape and the white gloves on, and I had my gloves and my little white shoes and white bag, and we would just walk down the street, and it was like she parted the Red Sea. Because at that time, in the early 70s, Vietnam was still going on. I was born in 67, in the middle of Vietnam, which started in 65. So there were still vets coming back, and they would be high on heroin. Everybody was on heroin. And they would be disheveled. They would have on their old army fatigues, and their friends would be pushing them in wheelchairs. And I was always afraid of them. But they gave us the most respect. They would go down like they're going to what they call a heroin lean, where you lean all the way down, but you never touch the floor. They never fell. I never understood that.
Never hit the ground.
They saw my mother. They would stand up. The best they could and say, "How you doing, sister? Excuse me." If they had anything, they put it behind their back. And I thought, wow, my mom is some kind of royalty. What is this? But that's the only way I knew other Black people. The only other Black people I knew were my uncles and my aunts and my cousins. I didn't know anybody else. So to me, Black people were civilized. We were intelligent. We were moral people. I didn't know anything about Black people until the school closed, and my mom said, you're going to have to go to public school. And me and my three brothers were like, public? What is that? Like, what's public school? Isn't the school going to open back up? And when we went to public school, oh my God, it was culture shock. It was just like, if you read The Lord of the Flies, just children and anarchy and insanity. And I went from this loving base of Black people that loved each other and loved us to a place where nobody cared whether you lived or died. And the first day of school, I remember I kept walking up and down the hallway until somebody caught me and said, "What class are you supposed to be in?" I was like, over there. And it was a fourth grade. And the funny thing was, when I graduated from graduate school closed, I was in the second grade. But my scores had hit so high that they put me back a grade in public school and put me in a grade, and I was still on point. That's how smart we were. And I went to the classroom, and my teacher was just so mean. Her name was Miss Jones. I'm not saying her name now because she's probably dead. She was old when I knew her. So I went there, and she was so mean. She was just like, "You belong here. Give me that paper." And I was just like, what the heck is this? Like, what's happening? What did I do? And she says, "Well, go right there." And she put me next to this girl who was a bully. And I won't say her name because she had a nickname that was negative for that time, because there were no fat kids anywhere. Like when I went to school, nobody was fat. Like, what's a fat kid? Because we're always running. But she was a fat kid, so they called her fat whatever. But anyway, she was horrible. She was always picking on me, calling me names. And none of the Black kids wanted to be my friends. None of them. They wouldn't speak to me. They were like, "You're a weirdo." The way that we sat at the desk with our hands like this and raised our hand to answer questions. "You act like a white girl. What's wrong with you?" And that burned me. Because I'm like, what are you talking about? Because I'm intelligent? Like, to me, that's how Black people behave. What do you, like, I didn't know any of those Black people that you knew. So they were like, "Oh," she's like, "Well, you sound like a white girl. You act like a," I would be burning up. And I was like, well, what kind of people are these? I felt like Kunta Kinte and Roots. Like, strange type of Black people with no sense of self, no pride in themselves. And I was picked on because I had pride.
Right.
I wanted to be intelligent because I like to learn. And all the teachers, this is what gave me, made me angry. They were, "Why can't you all be like Sajdah?" That's what they call me. I hate the way they say my name. Like, wait a minute, these kids are picking on me. You're trying to be like me, and you don't like me either. I would raise my hand and be like, Miss Jones, this, they're picking on me. They're pushing. They would throw books at me. They would kick my. Crazy thing, we came to school with a briefcase because that's the way we came to school in the nation. And they'd be like, "You a professor? Are you?" Like we didn't know what to say, you know what to do. They kept pulling my scarf, and that same girl that picked on me. One day we were in the bathroom and I was fixing my scarf. She said, "You're not bald." And I was like, "I never said I would. You better teach me how to grow my hair. I'm gonna F you up." I was so scared. I ran home and Mom, how you grow your hair? She was like, "What?" I was like, I don't know what to tell her. She was like, well, wash it and do something. I came back and told her. And for some reason, this other girl was like, your hair grew. She was like, she didn't beat me up. But basically, it was just an everyday torture. The only kids I had that would be friends of mine were immigrant, most from Puerto Rico. But my best friend in school in the 9th grade was a Chinese boy named Check Chang. He didn't know what was going on. I didn't know what was going on either. and that, like, every day, the good thing about back then is that you got to go home for lunch. So you had some reprieve from that torture. But it was just a consistent, over and over, just horrible. I didn't have my first black friend until I was in the 5th grade, you know, because they were just like, you're just so weird, you're just so strange. And I just felt like, you know, after the 2nd year of public school, I started to believe, like, was this just real? Was the nation ever real? Like, you feel like you were in like some type of a trance or something was going on, but was this ever real, or was I dreaming about that wonderful place? You know, and if it wasn't for us going to the temple still afterwards, I wouldn't have believed it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and I could imagine as a little girl, like, having to go from this one experience, which was so loving and so kind and so uplifting, to this other experience with people that looked like you but were so different. I can imagine having to have to reconcile the experience in your mind, you know. Yeah, so I love to hear you talk. I just met you on the screen, but you're my big sister already. But just to hear you recount the experience is just really enriching. You know, the good and the bad, because it's, you know, it's what allowed you to develop into who you are now. So tell us a little bit about your because these guys know I will dominate this conversation. So they
we taking it in. I feel like I'm at my aunt's house. My aunt's.
But real, I'm like sitting on the floor, listening to her speak, right? Like sitting at her feet. That's how I feel.
Plus, it's a level of dignity and culture that you could just tell was entrenched, you know, in her upbringing, right? And so, like the simple things that she mentioned about dressing and holding yourself at a posture, like certain things, like you said, in the language. Like today, you go to, well, now everybody's virtually, but in school, it's just like she said. It's back then it was crazy. I can imagine now, you know. So, just reinvigorating that in us is what's pushing me forward right now. So
really, yeah.
I'm about to bring out my pie and take.
That's one of the things that the culture that I grew up with. Most people kept asking me, where am I from, even up through high school. They said, well, where are you from? What island are you from? What country are you from? I'm like, Harlem, the middle of Harlem.
Right.
You know, we're not all beasts in the street. And we had a lot of, there used to be more respect for us than there is now. Right. I remember my father was an only child. My mom was one of 8. And my father had a cousin named Ivy. She had 2 children. My father's family on his mother's side is very, very fair looking. A lot of them look Caucasian. So Ivy, you know, she had the blue eyes and the blonde hair, and her children had blonde hair and blue eyes. No, she had green eyes. The kids had green and blue eyes and blonde hair. And they was to come over and say, oh, we feel sorry for you. You don't have Christmas. And, you know, my brother Hakeem breaks into his Malcolm X, even though we didn't even know Malcolm X at that time. And he's like, do you think a white man's going to come down our chimney and bring us some presents? We never cared. Like, they think we felt bad. I never felt bad for not celebrating Christmas. I never watched it. I loved all the shows. We used to watch White Christmas and Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer cartoons. We watched all that, and we loved it. But if somebody would have brought a tree in our house, they would have had a problem.
Right.
As kids, we just didn't care about that. We loved being Muslim, who we were, our food, our thing. And we loved, one of the things that I loved the most was, just being part of a community that was also famous. I said when I was about 6 or 7, I met Muhammad Ali. And he, oh my God, if you were able to see him in his prime, that is the finest man that Allah ever made on the earth.
Yes,
that was like a man. And being about 6 or 7, he was about 6'4", I think. But to me, he was like 10 feet. And I remember when he came, he bought our buses for the school. And when I was in Muslim school, and he came to the temple, and I just remember looking up like, wow, black is beautiful. I'd never seen nobody that fine in my life again. And he was just like so sweet and kind, just beautiful. My mom used to work at the Salam restaurant when she was younger, when Muhammad Ali was like, just changing into from Cassius Clay.
Right.
She said, honey, them women would be in there behind him like, I don't want to say anything negative, but beat the honey. He would come in the door to Salam, and the women would come right after him like a drove. But they knew they had to be respectful because they were around Muslims.
Right.
And he was kind to everybody that he met, but he was just so beautiful. I swear I've never seen anything that good no more. He was just so, like I said, just so tall, and I felt that my dad was a good looking man too. That was a fine looking black man. And he was like, I loved to look at him because he was just, so friendly, and he would talk to people, and he was the manager. And I would come in the Salon restaurant after school, and he would say, give her what she wants. And I was like, that's my daddy, that kind of thing. So I just felt good about that. And then the men and the F.O.I, oh my God, just to have experienced that, even though it's no longer here in our community like that, I don't think I've ever felt that good, because I remember once I left my purse at one of the Sunday addresses, and the next day I came to school and the brother just gave me my purse. Nothing was missing. I had $2, but nowadays you have a nickel, somebody gonna take it.
Right, it's gone.
But, I always felt safe in there. They're always looking out for us. If somebody tried, and I remember when my brothers they were at school when this happened, but the time there were police that shot up the masjid, pretending that they were looking for one of their kind and that we had them held hostage or some kind of mess. I didn't go that day because the girls went in the afternoon because there were so many kids. The brothers went in the morning and we went in the afternoon. So my mother and I were outside waiting for the buses, and I kept saying, well, where's the bus, Mom? Where's the bus? She said, I don't know. And people started running, back then in the Harlem neighborhood, we were just all connected. And they were like, sister, they shot up the mosque, they shot up the mosque, shot up the mosque. My mother was like, what? She said, yeah, they shot up the mosque. And she was like, oh my God. So we went back inside, and she was calling all on the news. The police had surrounded the building, the community surrounded the police. And it was like mayhem in there. Now when my brothers got home, I wasn't scared at all, because I was like, they told the devils were gonna come and attack us, and they did it. So my brothers came back home, and I was just like, what happened? What happened? Is it? And they were like, we had to duck. It was just like, no, kids, we just don't have any concept of danger. Like, right. We were supposed to get under the desk, and we did it. Oh, wow, because they used to always drill us like that. They used to say, take cover, and you have to get under your desk. I was like, man, it really works.
Right.
It was just like, to watch that on the news and see that that's my place, it was like, man. And then the next day we came in, there was a bullet in the middle of the forehead, a picture of the arm like Muhammad. So they pointed us to that, and they said, see, this is what they think of us, this is what they're trying to do. They want us dead, blah, blah, blah. And that just boosted us. Like, the kids were like, oh, now we really believe in this. So it was like that kind of a thing going on. And the F.O.I were just like everywhere. They were on post. They would walk through the neighborhoods. They were anywhere you went, you just felt like you got to protect. You didn't care about the cops. If something happened to you, you weren't calling no cop. You were calling the F.O.I.
Right.
It was like that. I know about the brother that actually taught me how to drive years later. Brother Daniel told me about, the death squads and how they were real. And they didn't come to the temple, but they were there to protect the nest, like killer bees. And he told about one time the woman, her husband had molested her son. They just never heard of him again. I said, now that's what I'm talking about. That's what we need now. I miss that. I miss those days of that kind of strength and how beautiful. I mean, we had the finest ministers. Oh my gosh, like ever. The Honorable Muhammad knew how to pick them. They just look so sharp. And to this day, I like men clean cut with that short Caesar haircut. And come on now. I love that look. It took me years to get into a beard.
Right.
I couldn't get into it because when Imam Muhammad took over, to me, beards meant unkempt. You know, the things that I didn't like I said, when they took out the chairs in the musalla to make a proper one, and me and my little brothers, they Khalid, Aziz, and Ahmed, we were running through the masjid at first doing flips and running around and yelling on the microphone because there's nobody up there. Then I just paused, and they were still playing because they don't remember it. But I looked around and I saw the chairs were gone, and I just started crying. I was like, "There's no more order in this place." And then after that, there was an element that came in that was just, because before when I was a little girl and I used to turn around and look at people come in, you went to class, you had to be, M.G.T class, you had to go, whether you wanted it or not, because it was here to teach you to be civilized. Now, my mom knew how to be civilized, and she was already refined. My mom was the most refined woman I knew. She was full of that grace and dignity kind of a woman. She never said a curse in her life. To this day, I'm like, Lord, please give me some of that. My mom, I've never heard her curse. I don't know any other women like that. But that's how she was. She was always dignified. Every place she went, everything she did, everything was in place. She taught me how to set a table and all this right in the projects. I didn't go to finishing school, but my mother, she taught me all of that. She taught my brother, and she went to school for teaching, had a certificate and everything. She never used it. She used it on myself and my brothers.
That's what I was thinking. She probably used it in the home.
Yeah, she had us debating. We had to read the Muhammad Speaks and write reports on them. We had to stand up and say them in front of her, and she would say, "No, don't slouch. Project your voice. Do this and that." That's how I was raised, and that's what I remember. Just all that goodness, all that refinement, and to go someplace where people just do not appreciate it at all. It was like, okay, I have relatives that are not Muslim. They don't act like this. Why are you guys acting like that? That's the part that really disturbed me, because I was like, where are these people coming from that they're so down and out and ghetto? And I said I had one friend. Oh, well, there was another one. She was from Ethiopia, though. But I had one friend in the 5th grade named Regina. And before that, the black kids, they want nothing to do with me. Because it's like you never experienced that. So you don't understand. You have no frame of reference. And I remember when the movie Roots came out on TV, I was 10 years old. And they played it in the school the next year when I was in the 6th grade. And everybody was like, wow, how hard, how different. But that's how I felt. And they were saying all the stuff about the movie, but I was like, I'm Kunta Kinte. You don't know what freedom tastes like, so you can't be my friend because you don't know what freedom, the biggest part that touched me in the movie is how Fiddler finally understood what freedom meant. Right. And he said, when he was beaten after running away, and he said, what's freedom like? Must be something special. And that made me, I was crying like a baby in that school because yes, it was something special.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and when you were just describing your experience in that segment and going back to being in the masjid and then bringing us back to the transition with the schooling, it makes me think of my own children, because my children grew up in Clyde Muhammad School, and my two older children were in a charter school before coming to Clyde Muhammad. So they kind of knew another experience beforehand. But even now, my older girls going into the charter school for high school, because there's no local Clyde Muhammad high school for them here in Jersey. They are kind of like outliers a little bit. But my children also, which I assume may be the case for your family, like they stick to each other too. So they're just like, I don't really care about those other people because my friends are in this house. It's not 7 of them, but
no, but like you make your own team, your own reality when you don't have that experience. And well, I mean, my father's mother, she would come and visit often, and my grandma Jackson, and she would bring us everything. She was just very, very loving person, period. She was always very sweet to us, but I would always look at her when she came. She used to wear this red lipstick, and I thought that was just a fly. My mother hated makeup on top of that. And the nation weren't allowed to wear makeup.
Right.
My mother didn't like it anyway, so to her it was like, hey. But I adored the way she looked. I thought she was so glamorous. Mm-hmm. And when she wore that red lipstick, red nail polish, I used to be like, and especially red, you could not wear red.
Right.
Right. Like, man, she is beautiful. When I get big, I'm gonna give me some red lipstick. And I worn it ever since. My mother hates it. She's like, look like you've been eating chicken and you got grease all over your mouth. So, but I adored it. And one of the things I also remember about the nation is just how beautiful those M.G.T look with no makeup.
Right.
Beautiful women. I've, just being around so many beautiful Black women and not having to look outside. We watched TV like we were TV-aholics. Mm-hmm. But I never looked to them for, I want to look like her. We love the Brady Bunch. If any of y'all remember that, it's still on reruns. But
of course, I remember Marsha. Yeah. I get that all the time.
Yes, that was our show. But I never wanted blonde hair. I never wanted blue eyes. I never wanted to look like them.
Right.
Because I had the women in my midst that I could look at. And then at the time, also one of the things about growing up in the early 70s and to the 80s, we were the first generation of Black dolls. Like my mother hated dolls, and I never understood why until I realized all the dolls she had were white.
Right.
There were no Black dolls. So nothing that looked like you was ever, beautiful or interesting. We had Black dolls.
Right.
For me, that's normal. I don't know anything else. Mm-hmm. My mother, like I said, she's 2 generations older than me. So they didn't have that. So for me, it was like we grew up in a kind of a strange way where we had these white shows we looked at. We loved them. We loved the musicals, all of that. But we were Black and we knew we were Black. We never wanted to be anything else. Whereas some of the children I started teaching, all they wanted to be was white. They had no frame of reference about anything else. Like the first time I ever heard the term dark skin, light skin, when I went to public school, I didn't know what that was. And like I said, my father's family was very fair. My mom was, brown skin and dark. We never said that in the house.
Right.
We were allowed to say that. We never allowed to say good hair, bad hair. So the first time I heard that, my siblings and I were all sitting somewhere in a park or something, and these little girls came around, and they said, "Are y'all all brothers and sisters?" And we said, "Yeah." "Y'all have the same father?" We didn't understand what that meant.
Right. What kind of question is that?
Everybody with different fathers. That wasn't a norm. Now in the Black family, everybody got a different daddy. But in our time, you got one daddy, one mama. So we were like, yeah, we got the same father. Well, how come he's light skinned and he dark skinned? He got good hair. And I was like, what? It was like you speaking Chinese. So I ran home and I said, "Mom, what's light skin and dark skin?" And she was so angry. It enraged her. She was like, "We don't say that. It's ignorance. We never talk about it." And even like I said, in the Nation of Islam, we had the diaspora in there. We had people there, except the only place they couldn't be, we didn't allow Africans to join. Because he didn't want people bringing in their culture to us. He wanted us to create our own culture in America. But we had Filipino Black people, Mexicans, Puerto Ricans, Jamaicans, Trinidadians, mostly African American, but we had everybody in diaspora there. Cubans. I didn't know. I just said we're all Black. We didn't do that.
Right.
Even though we knew them, we heard the accents and whatever. But we had a community in Bermuda at the time. We had a community in Puerto Rico. We had a community in, I believe we had a temple in Jamaica. I'm not sure. But we were just, and Minister Farrakhan, he was from St. Kitts. We were just all Black. We never did that to each other, like just, discriminate, oh, you're this, you're that. So I never understood that disunity. I never understood any of that. And, even though we had to have our hair checked when we came in school, first thing we had to do is inspection, looked under your nails, you had to take your shoes off, make sure your mama cleaned your socks, they flipped the scarf over and checked your hair. Your hair had to be done under that scarf. We weren't just, nowadays you see people walking around with buckwheat shots and whatever they're doing, and their hair looks terrible, and you can tell it's like, what are you doing? We had to look, that's why I said the sisters in the nation, we were fine as all, because we had, even though our hair was covered, it was done.
Right.
When I would go to M.G.T class with my mom when I was little, they would say that, don't come out here looking like Aunt Jemima. We're supposed to represent the best. Your shoes had to be shined. Your dress had to be pressed. Your hair was done. Your nails, we just looked good all the time. We had to know how to cook. We had to know how to clean, all that. But now it's like you see stuff and you're like, what are these people just have some thing over your face and some stuff looking like you just came from Egypt, but you're from Chicago. And we didn't do that. And that's the beauty that I love of the Nation of Islam and what it did for me is that I always had my own culture. I didn't have to look at an Indian and be jealous, or look at a Pakistani and be jealous, or look at a Iranian woman and be. I never was jealous of any of them. I had my own, and that lasted from then until there. And like I said, we represented, and my mother was like that. It's like, we're gonna be black up in here. That's it. And we were the first people. Like, they try to give that credit to other groups, but the Nation was the first group to say black. It was beautiful. Even James Brown gave credit to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad when he wrote "I'm Black and I'm Proud." Because in the days when you were coming up and you were black, my mom, everybody from that group would tell you, you call somebody black, you're going to fight, sometimes to the death. We were the first group to grow up thinking that was a beautiful thing, thinking that was a good thing, and we didn't want to be somebody else. And then that's the other thing that changed when Imam Muhammad came along. Not saying that he did this per se, but there were those of us who were dabbing in and out of the community, in different communities, and thinking, oh, they have this, they have that. Oh, I want to be like this, I want to be like that. I never got down with that. We never said hijab. We said khimar, and we still say that. I don't say that just because somebody's saying in Indo-Pakistan or something. No, we're gonna say khimar up in here. You know, and the way we style it, it's our own. We don't do what everybody else does. And Imam Muhammad told us not to do that. Especially when one of the I'm jumping ahead, but one of the conventions when it was 9/11. He said, no, don't dress like that. Don't look like them. Don't be mistaken for that. Not because he was being racist, but because he was saying, haven't you had enough stuff happen to you over here? Haven't you had enough dogs sicked on you? Haven't you been burned and lynched and all? You're gonna go out and join somebody else's group and be burned again? He said, well, I'm out. I'm not involved in that. If y'all want to do it, you can do it. I was like, I'm with you. I didn't have to wear my scarf. It's all good. I'm still a Muslim. I was a Muslim when I went to high school. I wore a scarf from elementary school to junior high school. When I got to high school, I just stopped wearing it, and I realized later on that it's because it didn't feel special anymore. It was just like when I was in the Nation, I loved the fact that we had different color uniform for different days, but I loved that uniform, and I loved my headpieces the most. I would always put that on last, after everything, and just felt sharp as a tack and just in control. And then when I got to high school, I was like, why are we wearing this? And nothing special about that no more. So I stopped wearing it until I was a little older. But I never stopped being a Muslim. I always behaved like a Muslim. And people would always say, something different about you. I don't know what it is, but you don't act like everybody else. I said, I'm not like everybody else. And that's how it was, you know.
Well, this is perfect segue. Well, we're way past half an hour mark, but station identification. You are now tuned in to New Freedom Exchange, here live, direct on Facebook, streaming live here, and also on YouTube. We thank you all for tuning in. We are joined by our special guest, Sister Sajdah Sabree, educator and author and artist and the whole shebang. And what we want to do is briefly go back, and we have some footage of that incident that took place at Temple Number 7, now is historically known as Masjid Malcolm Shabazz. We're going to play that 1 minute, it's a 1 minute clip, and then we'll be right back to talk a little bit more about the transition, and and continue the beautiful conversation from there. So we'll be right back.
This way, over here.
Salud, estudiante.
It got real out there.
It was serious. They really, what we had, especially in the nation, a couple of things is the love of our people. Even though they didn't know who they were, one of the blessings of being raised in my household, at least, is even after Malcolm X was assassinated, my parents never spoke poorly of him. They had even put an article in the Muhammad speech at the time, a picture of Malcolm's head rolling and rolling. And I didn't know who he was really in that sense. But my mother, she didn't feel good about that. She said when she knew him, he was a good man, he was a gentleman. He was always good to his children and his wife. And she said she was thankful Imam Muhammad came and told the whole truth, the whole story, because there were so many lies floating around. But neither of my parents spoke negatively about him. So I never had a bad feeling towards him. And I remember the stories of him in Harlem and going back and forth in the streets at night, him and Captain Yusuf Shah, and basically cleaning people up, going in the actual streets and the gutters, picking people up who were drunks and things like that, and telling them, come to the temple, brother. But the difference is back then, we had somewhere to put them. We had some place to treat people. It was said that the Nation of Islam had the best detox program for alcoholics, people on drugs ever than any other program, even AA. Because we gave you, like Imam Muhammad used to say, you cannot take something from somebody and not give them something better. And so that's what we were able to do. And the one thing that I noticed about when I got a little older, I said, you know, the thing that is different from the nation and everybody else is that we gave our people love. Nobody loved us. Everybody was, what's wrong with this Negro? What's wrong with that? Your hair is this or that. You should come over here. We gave each other, we gave our people love. We gave each other love. There was a sincerity that was just different back in the day than it is now. And also, I remember one of the things that was just important to me, being a little girl in the nation, we had the high school, they went to school upstairs. And we had teenagers that we could look up to. I thought they were just like these people fall out over, Nicki Minaj or whoever is out now. I don't even know. But we would do that for the teenagers. They were just gorgeous to me. You know, like I was just like, oh, wow. And they would do this thing where, you know, they say lay your edges. These girls would lay some edges. I want to do that when I get big. And I remember one of Farrakhan's daughters, I think her name was Marie. I just thought she was stunning. And she used to lay them edges and have that scarf on. I used to be like, wow, she's fine. And they were just so sweet to us. You know, they would just, you know, tell us how cute we were. And, you know, this is my daughter, you know, play daughter, stuff like that. And I miss that. That was beautiful. Just that we had role models where we were. We didn't have to look outside. Even though at the time, we were the first, like my generation was the first to have, you know, black women who were considered beautiful. You know, I just loved Jane Kennedy. She was just all that in a bag of chips and some dip. She was just gorgeous. And we had sisters in the nation that looked like that. So I was like, wow, I always loved to look at Muhammad Ali's first wife, Khalil. I thought she was stunning. She had that perfect skin, like a perfect tan. And she was just gorgeous. And like I said, they didn't wear makeup. They were just fine. And just to have that around you was just so wonderful and so fulfilling. And they were just ladies. I didn't know cursing and smoking a cigarette. They were ladies all the time. I never heard any of them come and raise their voice to us. Even Sister Deen, whom is still here, alhamdulillah. She lives in Atlanta now, I believe. And she was the dean in charge of all the girls. And when she would correct us one time, you know, the lower grades, we were running down the steps. And she just stood there and said, I know, I didn't just hear some M.G.T running down the stairs sounding like horses. You're going to go back upstairs and you're going to walk down the steps the proper way. She made us do that 3 times. Complete silence. We just thought it was funny. But just that's the way they corrected us, with love, you know. And I long for that from my daughter. That she shoots. My daughter tells me often, Mama, sometimes I feel bad when you tell your stories. I don't know what that is. And it makes me feel bad.
And it's interesting that you say that. I'm sorry to cut you off, but it's interesting that you say that, because as you were talking, the question that was generating for me is, as a mom and as a teacher, because you're amongst young people, but particularly as a mom, like how is, when you look at your children's experiences versus yours, you know, what's that comparison like? And then even for the children that you teach, you know, seeing where they are, the society that's wrapped around them, you know, what are some, I guess, maybe some best practices for us to take forward into the future from your experience to make that better?
One of the things I used to do when I was a teacher, the way that I was raised, the reason that I am so strong in my Islam is the reason that I really believe in what I'm doing. My mom was an example. She would never tell me to do anything she didn't do. Sometimes it'll make me angry because she'd be like, I didn't do that. I'd be like, ah. But she led by example, and I learned that. Classroom management was never a problem for me except one time, because I just came in there. And I know the older I get, I recognize my presence. I always came to school the way my teachers came to school, in peace and love. When the teachers would try to tell me next year, you're going to get Jimmy. Yeah, I used to be, don't tell me not one thing about Jimmy. I don't want to know his background. I want to be able to meet him on my own terms. And they would come in the classroom, he didn't act like that with me. Oh my God, he'd have been cursing. He bit me. He did this. Never happened to me. I had a whole 5th grade class my first time as a sub. They were all children who were maybe like 90% came from the shelters that were surrounding the school. And they had a teacher, she was from Africa. Very kind teacher, very nice, but they sent her home because she had asthma, and they threw Ajax in the sky. She had an asthma attack. So one of the boys came to me and said, Miss Sabree, I bit her. And she was scared of me. I said, you know what? I bite back. And he was like, what? And this other boy was like, what if I hit you? Oh, you'll be going out in a coffin and I'll be in handcuffs.
Right, I'll be going to jail. But that ain't happening.
I was like, no, but I love those children. I showed them love the way my teacher showed me love. And there was one boy who I cannot remember his name, but I see his face in my head all the time. He was a child of like a teen mom. Mm-hmm. And he lived in the shelters, and he would miss school very often. I would see him in the street, and I would say, honey, why didn't you come to school? And he would say, oh, I have things to do. One day he was down the hall having a fight with a boy from the upper grades, and this boy was tall. The boy was he was a little guy, maybe 4 feet something, and the boy he was fighting was like almost 6 feet. He was whipping that boy down. I came to break up the fight, and he threw me. His arms were so muscular he had cuts, like he was lifting weights. And when he told me his life, and he was telling me, sometimes I have to stay home to protect my little brothers. I don't want any of those men messing with them. And that broke my heart. He's a little boy. His mother was, bringing in men in the house because a lot of women in the shelters are on drugs, and the men would use them and then give them money for their drugs or give them drugs. And at first I was just so angry with his mother. I said, if I ever see this woman, I'm going to punch her in the face. I was so angry because one day he had hit his head on we had this open, what do you call that? Radiator. And I just, the mother in me, I rubbed his head. He laid on my chest and I just rubbed his head, and he said, Mr. B, I wish my mama would do this for me sometime. And I had to walk out of the room. I was going to bawl.
Yeah.
And the last day of school, his mother came. She was on, drugs severely. And I cried when I saw her. She was a beautiful looking woman. Even though she was on drugs and her hair was messed up, her skin, you could see her essence and how beautiful. And I just started like crying inside, like somebody messed with this little girl, gave her all these babies, and just threw her away. And now I understand, so I wasn't as judgmental. And she came to get his report card, and she just looks sad. I always wonder about him. I see a lot of my kids I used to teach when I was in fifth grade, but I haven't seen him, and I pray he's okay. But it was that kind of experience that I would do. One of the other experiences I had, I taught at an alternative school for girls. There were girls who were wards of the state, basically. The parents had put them out the house, mostly for stupid reasons, like the boyfriend started liking the daughter, so they put the daughter out.
Right.
And my mom told me, honey, that's been happening since I was young. Girl gets older, they put the girl out. But anyway, we would have such deep conversations, and most of them would go in there and I call them trisexual. They say they were lesbians. I said, whatever. I said, y'all just trying stuff. And I used to tell them, you're not in a jail. You're in a room. You don't have to be with a woman. Go outside. But they just asked me such, intelligent, inquisitive questions. And some of the things that would happen is in the classroom, nobody reared these girls, most of them. Some of them were, but nobody reared them. They just had these girls and they did what they did. And the room would smell so bad. And the workers who actually paid to take care of these girls, they would just make fun of them. Oh, this room stinks. They smell like a bunch of cows. So I just decided I made my own hygiene class for the girls. And what I did before I had the class with all the girls, I took the girls who were raised, and I said, now the mark of a woman is you don't laugh at people who are less fortunate. The job of a woman is to train, to teach. That's who you are. If you're blessed to know things, you give it to somebody else. You teach them. I did just like I did in M.G.T class. I brought my own stuff, and we had a class with the girls. 1 week passed. Everybody, Miss Sabree, what have you been doing with those girls? They smell so good. They're so clean. They're this and that. They're neat. I just looked at them. I just was like, there's no words for an adult like that.
Right.
These girls go out like this, and then the sad thing was they didn't know any better. There was a hospital next door to us, and they would actually turn tricks with these doctors. And the staff would get on the girls. I said, no. What about these grown men?
Right.
Who are molesting children? Do you understand it? But because they were doctors, they were supposed to be special. No.
Right.
No. I wouldn't let. I would tell the girls all the time, when you go to the doctor, because they would tell me the horrible things the doctors would do to them and tell them that they were just whores and this ain't the first time they're going through. I said, you have rights as a human being to demand to be treated a certain way. Don't you let anybody come and teach. And some of the girls would be like, hey, Miss Sabree, guess what I did? I kicked the doctor because he tried to. I said, that's right. That's right. You have rights. You're a human being. You're a woman. And see, it took me back to what my mother told me about Black women in her time and how if you work this day work, what they like that movie, The Help. A big part of what they left out of that movie was all the sexual harassment that those Black women went through at the hands of those white men that they worked for. A lot of them were raped and molested. My mom and my aunt in the summertime, they had to do that because at that time there was no summer jobs for Black women. And the beautiful thing is that later on, they could help the younger ones of them. They didn't have to do that. Like my dad gave my aunt Ann her first job. She worked at the salon restaurant. She didn't have to do that. And that's what we used to do for each other. But, that was what was very, very important in what the women gave to each other. And my mother, she said, there were people who would go to the house and the men would show up at the door with their underwear on. And my mother was no joke. She didn't care. Boss, white, Black, she gonna tell you off. She was like, what in the world are you doing coming to the door with your drawers on? I never heard of anything. He was so embarrassed. And his wife, he just does. She said, I don't care what he thought. Is this what he does in the house? Is he working? I was like, Mama, you were the employee. She said, I don't care. She gonna tell you. She did that. She was always a very moral person. When they first moved to New York from North Carolina, my Uncle Warren had moved earlier. And Uncle Warren, he loved the women. So she came to visit her aunt. She said, well, where's Warren? Well, he's upstairs entertaining entertaining women. And she was like, entertaining what? Arthur Warren Murphy, get your behind down and get that woman. I said, Mom, I'm leaving your house. She said, I don't care. He wasn't raised like that. He knows better. I said, you don't. One thing I said, my mother never allowed certain things in our house. She said, I don't care where you live. It's who you are. I don't care if you live in the worst ghetto in the world. There are people in palaces that are not as civilized as you. She said, that's who you are. You're civilized. And you go out that way. And you behave that way. And that's who you are. There's nobody better than you. That's what she always tell us. Nobody's better than you. And I'd be like, okay, Mom. But that's just wearing. And like I said, the beautiful thing about that time was that there were more people like that. There were more decent people than indecent people. Right. So if you were going to be flamboyant and homosexual, whatever, you knew not to do that at your grandma's house. Mm-hmm. You had a boyfriend and you slept with him and lived with him, whatever. You come to your mama's house, that's your boyfriend, and he sleep in one room and you sleep in the other. But now it's like, oh, well, I know they're doing it already. No. I don't care what you're doing outside. You're not doing that here. And that's how we were raised, and that's why we kept the Black community was better than it is now. We do everything now, whatever they do in Hollywood, we're doing it too. But that wasn't the way it always was. It was better. Even in the ghetto of the ghetto, people knew. They would say, your mama know you're doing that. You better stop doing. Somebody would chastise you for behaving wrong. Somebody would tell on you. And that situation, like I said, a lot of that stemmed from the way we were living as Muslims, the way we were in the community. Because I realized Muhammad used to say, go into your community. We're always trying to go somewhere somebody else don't want you. Go into your community and make it better.
Right.
So F.O.I, the brother, they walked the streets in Harlem. They weren't afraid. Cops were out there. They were out there too. And a lot of the cops would rather happy to see the F.O.I like, oh, God, we ain't got to deal with Crazy Joe. We just send him over to you. But Crazy Joe knew we loved him. And he wouldn't do things. And going back to the school, same thing. My kids knew I loved them. I wasn't trying to hurt you. I was going to tell you the truth. Children who consider themselves homosexual, they would come right to me, Miss Sabree, why can't Muslims be gay? And I said, well, you want me to tell you the truth or you want me to tell you what you want to hear? We want the truth. And they would come right back. So for us, as far as like for the children, like for my daughter, what I try to do is put her in situations where there's other Muslims and also lead by example. My daughter, when she was about 5, I told her she had to put on shorts when she goes to the sprinklers or go to the pool. She couldn't just wear her bathing suit. She was like, okay. I never had to fight with her. And one day we went to Central Park. She was in the sprinklers. She had on her shorts and running back and forth. And these 3 Caucasian girls came around her. They all had just a bathing suit. And they said, why are you out here with shorts on in your bathing suit? I just sat back on the bench like, okay. She was like, well, why aren't you wearing shorts?
Right.
That's like underwear. You're out here in your underwear. And they were all like, what the heck is she saying? And they all
got back.
I'm like, that's my girl.
That's right. I know you were in the background like, yes, daughter.
But that's what we can do as far as until we can get the situation as far as the school, we have to come together. Right now, she's in an online school, Claire Muhammad School. That's something that we can do.
Right.
It's difficult, but with difficult comes ease. Allah will send us things. And always one of the things that like I said, the older I get, the better it is for me because I have more patience with myself. When you're younger, you're like, oh, why can't I do what Sally is doing? You have to realize you're in a different situation. Deal with what you, and Allah comes through like nobody else. Like the Christians say, won't he do it? Yeah, he will. He comes through for you in a way that is expedient. And like they say also, he might not come when you call him, but he's always on time. So one of the things I had to learn also being a divorced mother is that I don't have that. I don't have a husband.
Right.
It's me and my baby. But thank Allah I have my brothers and my sister, and I had my mother and my other cousins and everything that were there, and they helped me. Allah will send you what you need. And it's more difficult because what part of what you need is not just help. You need, release, and you need relaxation, you need protection in that way. But I think what I have. And inshallah in the future will be better. But that's what you have to teach. And like I said, the best way to teach is just example. The children will follow you. I've never had a problem with that. I mean, some of the worst kids, they used to put in my office when I was at AP, assistant principal. They used to say, go to Mr. Sabree's office. Because when the other office, they would act up. And all I would say is, Tyrone, what you doing in here again? Well, sometimes they would do that just to come in your class. Or just to come in, just to be around you. Most of these children are parentified children. I had a girl, a cute little Puerto Rican girl, I'll never forget her. She had a mother who was out there, always with some man here, there, wherever. And she cursed her mother out something awful. But she would never say that to me or my friend, M.G.T, who was the principal at the time. She never cursed at us like that. It's respect. It's how you hold yourself. It's how you carry yourself. It's what you bring into the situation and bring Allah first. And you'll reach these children in a way that nobody else will. And they'll remember you. To this day, I run into my children. I still call them that. And they'll always hug me. I don't want to be one of those teachers that children come back and open fire and shoot you in the thing because you treated them so badly. Right. I want to be the ones you come, you hug me. You still love me. I still love you too. And how are you doing? And that's the way you're supposed to be. That's a Muslim. That's the best of us.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think it's perfect segue into latter the latter years of going to the transition of Imam Muhammad when he took office, and just want to focus a little more attention on that experience that you had from from February 1975 on to the passing of Imam Muhammad. Those first, I gathered, those first 5-10 years was rough, not in the sense that it was bad, but a lot of things were changing, and they were changing rather drastically, even though there are gradual changes. So could you, talk a little bit more about especially those early years of the Imam Muhammad's leadership?
Well, I had heard about Imam Muhammad from my deceased aunt Iris before he took office. I remember I used to eavesdrop on the phone with her and my mama, and she was saying he's different than the other ministers. He speaks differently, but he's a good person. Like, she never said anything negative, but it's just like he doesn't sound like the other ministers. So my mom said that when he passed, she said, I don't know, I didn't know what to do. All I knew was I've been in this nation this long. I'm going to stay for the rest of the ride. Mm-hmm. So we as children, we just came along. And like I said, for us, we were so young that we were more malleable. I remember learning the prayers over what they call a phone hookup. Mm-hmm. And they would be saying the prayers all together, learning how to say Al-Fatiha or whatever. Most of the time, the kids would be downstairs, the adults would be upstairs, we'd just be playing. But I do remember that. I remember we started making formal salat. I thought it was fun. I thought it was just exercise. I remember we started actually reading Quran, not just putting it up on a high shelf. And the good thing was that, even though I say we needed more, we needed to keep the things that were there that were good. We needed to keep the F.O.I class. I just wish we would have kept some of that stuff because some people were so far gone. It was the time, the mid to late 70s, another element started to come into the masjid. The prison element. I'm not saying everybody from prison was terrible, but what I did not like was how they just would come in and they weren't reformed, refined, like we used to do. You have to go to class. You can't come out of a penal institution and walk into society like that. And that was part of the issue that I had when I was younger, because they let an element in that was very dangerous. There were child molesters. There were rapists. There were men who were abusive. And that damaged part of our community. And that part I did not like. And they say, oh, it's Islam, we can't do like we did in the nation. Da, da, da. Why not? Well, we have to learn how to be blah, blah. Somebody should have beat the tar out of them, even though some of them had their behinds kicked. But it was a bad element. And the worst part was that some of them became in leadership. How are you going to lead people who are already decent and you were indecent just yesterday? That was the problem that I had with that. Mm-hmm. And then there were those who had no respect for what came before and started to question everything. Oh, we all in an angel. I know about that Islam. I learned Arabic and I know how to do this. So what? You're not refined. It doesn't matter. Like say throwing pearl to swine. I did not like that disrespect that came with some of the people. Well, I was never in the nation. That's nice. I was. And I'm proud of it. And I had a sister ask me, well, if you could come through the sunnah and you could learn the whole thing from the beginning to the end, wouldn't you rather have done that? I said, no. I said, Allah, take me back one more time. You have no idea what that did to refine a people who were nothing. And I didn't come from that element. But I know, all I know is being proud of being Black. All I know is feeling good about who I was. All I know is I was taught by my own. And I have a respect for that. One of the things that Imam Muhammad brought was, that even though the school was gone, I had Saturday school. We had Girl Scouts. We had Boy Scouts. We had what they call the youth thrust with the older kids. And so it still gave me that element of my peers. And I loved it. Like, if you wanted to punish me as a kid, preteen, tell me I couldn't go to the masjid. I would cry all day. That's how much I loved it. Because you had your peers there, and there was so many kids, so many teenagers, and we would have picnics and bus rides and street rallies and just all. It was always something to do. The masjid was always open, you know, and we had youth Sundays where the young brothers would come and do the kickoff that Sunday. I think it was every fourth Sunday, or every third Sunday, because I think fourth Sunday was for Imam Muhammad. But we had that, and we were involved, and there were so many weddings at Malcolm Shabazz. I mean, it was just beautiful. I remember we were about 11, me and a couple of my Girl Scout friends, and we had a crush on this brother, and we went to his wedding in our little Girl Scout uniforms. He was about, I think, 20 or something, but we just crushed on him madly, and we sat there and cried at the whole wedding, like I didn't think about it, but we didn't care. But that was just a beautiful thing to be able to have crushes on your own kind, in your own place, and be safe in that, and not have to worry, you know, grown man gonna mess with a little girl. You know, but that was just a beautiful time. And I remember there's a movie that I loved. Lean on Me, I think. Not Lean on Me. This movie with these boys who were they went to look at this dead body, so they made this whole trek out to see this dead body. I'm trying to remember, I think Corey Feldman or somebody was in that. And at the end of the movie, the author says, you know, I never again had friends like I did when I was 13. Does anybody? And that's how I feel. Like, those were the best friends. I just loved them. We just loved each other. We would walk down the street holding arms, holding hands, all that kind of stuff. We just loved each other. We would go roller skating together and just, you know, wonderful things. And then also one of the most wonderful people, I mean, I was blessed to have like so many aunties in the community that looked out for me, that loved me and loved my mom. And one of the most special to me was Stand By Me. Thank you, cuz. That was the name of the movie. And
I was trying to Google it.
One of the most beautiful people, her name was Nissa Muhammad. She's not here any longer. But I call her my godmother because Allah truly sent her to me at a time when I needed it. Like my mom, you know, trying to raise 7 children by yourself, it was hard on my parents. After the Nation of Islam, my father had a complete breakdown, nervous breakdown, deep depression, the whole thing. My mom went into hers, but because she was our mother, she couldn't fall down like that. But she needed help. And Sister Nisa, she was my Girl Scout leader. Same thing happened with her when it happened with Dr. Zakir when I first met her. She just welcomed me in. She was so sweet. I loved her. I adored her. She passed away when I was about 21. But she gave me so much in my teenage life that I needed, that my mom just wasn't able to do at that time. And I think, you know, like I said, once you get older, I'm 53 now. Once you get to this stage, once you hit 40, really, you start thinking in a different way about your parents and understanding what this must have happened. Like I said, my parents grew up in the 30s and the 40s. You know, my father was in New York, but in New York, even in New York, black men could not go to haberdasheries. Places, everybody wore hats back then. Right. Black men could not try on the hats. My mother, she's in North Carolina, she told me they couldn't go in the shoe store and try on shoes. They had to trace their feet on a piece of paper and go in the store with it. That's humiliating.
Right.
So that's their lives. I don't have like people, like this Caucasian woman asked me, one of my professors, you know, how could your parents believe the white man's the devil? I said, how could they not?
Right.
Do you understand Jim Crow? I call it slavery light. The only difference is you weren't owned. But your treatment was so degrading. And if you've never been degraded, you can't speak on that. You don't understand it. So no one's allowed to check my parents in that way. But what I learned was they did the best they could with what they had. My generation is the first that therapy is okay. And I had a therapist, thank Allah, the best in the world. My parents, they was telling you therapy, that's for white people. We're the craziest people on earth. We need some serious therapy. What you talking about? You need to be there first. But I found that I was able to get a Muslim and a black woman therapist to help me through my stuff. And you learn, okay, I'm depressed. I recognize the signs of this. Let me talk to somebody. Let me do this. Let me do that. Help myself so I can heal myself. So my daughter never had experienced anything like that.
Right.
My mom was blessed because they didn't have that kind of therapy, or they wouldn't have gone if they had it, that people in the community took hold of it. Sister Amida, you know, just wonderful people who would grab you as, you know, and tell you this, this, and that, and say, you know, come on. This, and it was just a beautiful thing to have. And I thank Allah for my friends that we would do the same for each other. And that's how I learned what friendship was, because I had so many wonderful aunties in the community. They taught me what it was to be a friend. So many women now, you could competition and you got this man and he gonna look at her. We didn't do that. If you needed me, I'm here for you. I need you, you're here for me. You know, when I went to some of the worst times in my life, I had the best of friends who helped me in these situations. So just that bit of it. And one of the most wonderful things that Imam Muhammad did was in 1989, the Islamic Convention. I'm telling you, it was euphoric. And it took me back because I was a junior in college at the time. And I had gone and I looked around, and just to see like Muslims, it blew my mind. I mean, I know our community was international. I know there was, but just to see us all, because at the time, what was happening in my own community in New York wasn't the same. It was dwindling. All my peers were gone. And he did it at just the right time. And when we went to the convention and saw all these young people, your age, college age, my sister was in high school, so people in high school, we just like, oh my God, we still exist, you know, and we just gravitated towards each other and just hooked up. You know, shout out to my boy Suleiman, Salam from KC and all his boys, and my friend Michael and Jahar, and just everybody who we just met there, and we just vibed. And it was just a beautiful thing. And then I met all of my best friends in 92. What's up, Camilla, M.G.T, all of y'all. And I just love y'all to death. And it was just exciting. We would, you know, dress up. Okay, what you gonna wear this year? It was the highlight of my life that year. And it was just so beautiful. And everybody had a place. The pioneers had a place. The adults, you know, parents had a place. We had a place. And we had the best workshops. And I remember one year, at the time I was working at the New York Public Library, going to school at the same time. And there was a guy there who said, I want to take my time. And I said, well, I'm not going to be here. So I don't know, because I was planning this trip a year in advance. And one of the girls was like, why is it so special? Why you got to go there every year? What's the big deal? And I told her what we did. She was like, that's it? I said, you have no idea. Enlightening my mind was fun to me. I didn't care about going to a club and drinking stuff. You know, I've been to clubs, but that didn't do anything for me. But when it comes here, which was on all this information, we went to these wonderful workshops, you know, Imam Qasim, Imam Shoaib, that was just wonderful. And we just, you know, meet each other from all over the country, and just everything was just wonderful. And I just never experienced that again. And I want that for my daughter. I definitely do. A lot of people got married from there. A lot of people, you know, found roommates for college, everything. We just had it together. And then from there, broke off and started having youth conferences. And then we had the Ramadan sessions. And people would not believe that I'm going to a Ramadan session like I'm going to you know, the Bahamas. I said, no, we would sit at the foot of the master and learn from him. I'm upset because I do not have my notes anymore, unfortunately. But I would have books full of notes. And I remember one year, Kafi's deceased husband, Rasul, he was such a beautiful brother. I asked to borrow his notes, and I thought I was doing something with my notes. This brother was like, it was almost like word for word, you know, and just meeting so many wonderful young people, becoming friends with so many people. That was one of them. I will always love Imam Muhammad for that. He united the community in a way that it couldn't have happened any other way. He just knew what to say. Thank you, Angela.
Let's see them notes. Pass some notes. Pass them over, sis.
Yeah, pass some notes.
It was just like that. Like we were in Ramadan, we weren't eating, but we were sitting there at the foot of the master and listening and writing. And we would come home from conventions with books of things. And every year I got my T-shirt, and it was just a beautiful thing. Because I mean, during that time, it was a good experience because, like I said, I'm the first generation of Black women that had Black dolls. We were the first generation to have Black heartthrobs. You know, before that, there's only white men on the screen, and that's all they had. But we actually had Black men. I used to watch a show called The White Shadow, James and 16. I had crushes on all these Black, because it's the first time we had Black boys on TV. I had a friend, She used to love Todd Bridges from Different Strokes, but we had them. You know, it wasn't like my parents' generation and the generation before where there was barely anybody there. And that was such a beautiful thing. Oh, that's Kevin. Lord have mercy, I used to love him. He was on a show called, and that's, what was that? Thomas Carter. I used to be in love with them. David Hubbard. These are the first black boys on TV. Like, we were just like, but it was normal for us because that's how we grew up. And like I said, my daughter's generation, they're growing up similar ways. They're just trying to change it. But we had that, you know, and my sister and I, even though she's like 6 years younger than me, she'd be up there cheering too. And we were just happy. It was a time to be happy. I mean, the Cosby Show came across when I was in a junior in high school. And it was just like normal. Even though some of the people say, well, that's not normal. I was like, normal to whom? Because even though we were in the ghetto, most of my family wasn't. So for us, Cosby Show was normal. I was like, okay, people living in brownstone and have two parents. What's the big deal? But to have that as a norm on TV, and then what they're trying to do with it now, I don't agree. I still watch the Cosby Show. My daughter watches it with me because Bill Cosby is not Cliff Huxtable, as far as I'm concerned. But just to have that at a time, we had our own magazines. We had Jet, Ebony.
Yeah.
My mother didn't have that. They had to watch whatever white people had, that's what you had.
Right.
But to have your own, you know, and it was just like paradise. And because, like I said, we have the program now with Sharif, shout out to you, We Buy Black. We were buying black all the time. I always had the attitude that if the black person had it, even if it was more expensive, we're going to buy it there. And if it was a Muslim, we go to my mother, is another that was curious about her, she would never let us take her to a restaurant unless it was black. And I never understood that until I was talking with my friend Aziza. Shout out to Zizi. Her husband and niece were talking about his family, his father, and he never wanted to go to a restaurant. And he said, because when I wanted to go to a restaurant, they wouldn't let us in there. And I never thought about that till then. And I was like, wow, that makes so much sense. And she would always, whenever we would go to the convention, we get to the hotel, I'd be like, room service. She's like, no, go find the brothers that's selling the fish. And we had to go find them. But we would all be looking at the end of the convention, every convention, it would start off, I always go earlier just so I could watch the Muslims come in because we changed the spirit of the place. Like, it's just like the feeling of that. We would come in, there'd be a bunch of people, you know, regular people, whatever. And then on Thursday, the Muslims would start coming in. But Friday, I would just lean over the banister and watch the Muslims come in and just like, hey, sister. That was just like the best. And to have that feeling, and then at the end of the thing, we would be in tears, crying, hugging each other. And just because we didn't want to leave.
Mm-hmm.
And we would be in serious tears. I wouldn't want to go downstairs. And after the public address, I couldn't, like, my whole spirit would come down. But I would love it when they used to say, you know, next year we're going to be in Baltimore, wherever we were. But we changed cities, we changed venues, and then they would say, and the youth conference would be, because that was usually in December, we see the youth conference. So it was like, great. And I remember people coming from other communities, ISNA, and, you know, we went over there to see so-and-so. I would be like, okay, why don't you come over here? Because I'm here. You know, if you want to go over there, go, boo-boo. We here. We black in here. And it was good. And at the end, I remember we closed every convention. Everybody looking for the bean pie man.
Bean pie man.
I mean, that was just like, I remember when we were in DC. It was so funny. We didn't have anybody for some reason that was in the place. So a brother comes running down the street. There's a bean pie guy. Down by the thing. We didn't know what was going on. It was a line from the hotel to the brother at the corner from the nation selling that bean pie. Yes, indeed, we were buying the whole boxes and whatever we could. We had to end it with the bean pie. And no bean pie, this isn't real.
Right.
He brought the community back together from being in a nation in a way that I felt was useful, in a way that was beautiful, in a way that was helpful, and in a way that kept me sustained like no other. And that's what I love. And then from that came so many beautiful conferences, the marriage conference that they used to do in Atlanta. Shout out to Sister Khadija Sharif and Sister Amina. And we had so much of that going on. Like, there's so much that's spearheaded from that. And, you know, when he passed away, I understood how my mom felt even though I was devastated when the Honorable Elijah Muhammad felt when he passed. I did not like I believe he was going to die, but it was just like seemed like suddenly, my cousin Juanita calling, and everybody was like, "Oh, that's not true." Yeah. And when we heard it was real, it was like dead.
Right. What now?
What are we gonna do?
Right.
Where's our leadership? What's going on here? How is he dead? I was blessed to be able to go to Janaza and everything, and I just felt like, wow, just like it's time. And we got to see the graveside of Sister Clark Muhammad and Honorable Elijah Muhammad. We went to the burial, but it was just so heart-wrenching because it was the end of an era, and it's kind of like, if you weren't there, you missed out on a lot from that time, that change, and the most beautiful thing was the way Imam Muhammad was able to change a whole group of people, especially for my mom, because you went from the Christian world to the nation to proper al-Islam, and you did it without skipping a beat. He was able to do that and transform a whole community with nothing. And after he passed, so many leaders, because when he started doing what he was doing, he was called a traitor and a liar and a kafir and all these kind of horrible things they said about Imam Muhammad back in the day. And after he passed, then some of these so-called leaders, well, now I understand. You understood then, you were jealous. But he was truly a man of his time, ahead of his time. Another beautiful thing, like when he came to the Apollo, he spoke about Minister Malcolm and things that I didn't know. And when Malcolm's daughter, Ilyasa, came up and said, when my father was put out and everybody turned their backs on him, Imam Muhammad still stayed around. And that touched me because he never talked about it. He never bragged. He never made well, I was still there. It's just like the way that he behaved was so Islamic, so dignified that other people spoke about it. Sister Betty, same thing. He came to something that she was getting an award for, and they hugged each other like old friends. And I thought that was just a beautiful person all together. To be there for somebody when things are up is one thing, but to come when they're at their lowest, when people are talking negative about them, and you still got their back, that's a man. And that's one of the things that I loved about him. And when he talked about how just how the community was and how the first conventions were at each other's houses. And I thought, I wish I could have experienced that too. When we were that tight knit of a community. And we were, like I said, the Black people in America, period, all of us, Christian, Muslim, whatever we are the most beautiful and powerful people because we fought a complete country with nowhere to go and our backs against the wall. And there were Muslims over here, Muslims. There were Turkish Muslims over here. People had masjids. There were Arab Muslims, and nobody lifted a finger to assist us from slavery until we freed ourselves. We fought for our own. And, we have such a powerful history that you can't not love us. There's nothing like this in the world, that of a group of people fighting with their backs against the wall and no help except from Allah. And we made it through all. Like I said, the fact that any of us is sane, the fact that any of us want anything, the fact that any of us is building in the middle of this, what we're going through now, is all praise is due to Allah. Because there's no other reason for this.
Before we let you go, you touched on something I want to bring back up, and the brother, he kind of mentioned it here. He said, I was incarcerated for almost 13 years, and the sister is right. I caught a lot of flack for being a diligent student of the Imam. There are many I left behind and lived around that think we somehow don't properly understand the Sunnah, or that we are a community of Bid'ah. I don't want to go too much into that, but there is from your story, just sharing it, you could, because when most people think about Nation of Islam, most people think about Muslims in America, African American, they always think about, the white man is the devil. They think about these teachings that make it seem like we, are hate mongers, or we spew hate among each other for other races and other people. But just in your demeanor, just in your disposition, it's clearly shown that that's not true. But can you speak to that, as far as like the different teachings and how like the Imam did give us insight into what his father was in the language aspect of it?
One of the things that I encourage everyone to read Dr. Zakia's book, Mother of the Nation, because she goes deep into that. But just on the surface, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, I came here to clean you up and get rid of your fear of the white man. If people really understood how serious that is for people who were, like I said, you brought from some country to another country, and like Imam Rashad said one time, we're the only group of people who didn't immigrate, but we were brought here to serve the dreams of another people. That's insanity. Like, you came in from Ireland. What did you come in for? Oh, my father's so-and-so, and we came over here, we started a cattle farm. Oh, you're from Russia. We came over here, we started a vodka, whatever. We came over here from China. I came over working on the railroad, and I did this and that. What did you come in for? To serve the master. We didn't even know why we were coming. And the majority of us were not in a position that we wanted to leave. We didn't say, oh, let's get on the boat. We said, what the heck? We're being driven onto a boat, and you don't even know what's happening. You can't understand the language. You get off, you're stripped naked. They mess up your head. Somebody's raping you on the boat. You get here. So what Elijah Muhammad was dealing with was the residuals of that. Farad Muhammad came because the Ahmadiyya movement, they were trying to civilize the world with Islam. At the time, I believe it was the end of the Ottoman Empire. And so they were trying to bring Islam back. The white people rejected it. So they came to us. So as we were lost, found. And all of that information was just done to bring us to Islam eventually. Well, he knew he couldn't do that, because the way that you spread Islam that was spread the best, if you look at Islamic history, was West Africa, because they taught themselves. East Africa, it wasn't as much. But West Africa, because the Africans taught the African. So the Honorable Elijah Muhammad came and became his best student, and he took over. And what he did is, I know my people. He gave us the medicine that we needed at the time, because we had, like we used to say, no knowledge of self, no love of self. He gave us that so that we could turn into and learn to love who we were. And that type of teaching was necessary for our people. If you can imagine that everything you did, everywhere you went, you were made fun of. We were put in the zoo, in the not Central Park, the Bronx Zoo. Pygmies from Africa, as if they're monkeys. And people coming around, like you do in the zoo. Well, look at that monkey, look at this monkey. These are black people. Now imagine being a black person and seeing that. There is an encyclopedia of racist terms. We occupy 85% of it. Everywhere you go, there's a word for nigger. Pardon my French. Everywhere. People who can't speak English. I've dealt with people because from my experience with being with racist people, it wasn't actually Caucasian people that treated me bad. I've never actually been treated bad by a white person, ever. It's immigrant people that treated me bad. East Indians and Koreans and Chinese said, call me a nigger. Never been called that by a white person in my life. My professors who were Caucasian, they were very kind to me. And even before that, in the schools, when I went to public school, the teachers that treated me the best were the white teachers. They adored me, actually. But racism, the thing that was done to us by Caucasian people, was spread throughout the earth. So imagine, I have family that fought in World War II. I'm sure we had somebody in World War I. Imagine being a black person. You fought Crispus Attucks, the first black person to die in the Revolutionary War. Then we fight this war, 1812. Then we fight the Civil War. The black people, and all of this. You come back home, nigger, get to the side, sit down. You ain't nobody. Then they make racist memorabilia for you to feel worse about yourself. There's a museum of racist memorabilia. I forgot the college that it's in. Somebody can put it up if they know it. And he shows these different things. And this is the first time that I learned that most of the lynching pictures that we have of black men being burned are postcards. Now imagine living in this world where a picture of a black man being castrated and burned is sent around like, hey, we're in Florida. Sorry you missed this. And imagine being somewhere, like I said, my mom, you could not go into the store and try on the shoes, couldn't try on the clothes, because God forbid a white woman put it on after you. That's what they were told. And imagine going somewhere, and everywhere you go, you nappy-headed this, you black, you tar baby, you this and that. That's the mindset. You cannot help but hate yourself in that situation. I thank Allah, my parents joined the Nation of Islam. I don't know what that's about. I've always liked who I was. I've always liked my own hair, my own skin. I never wanted to look like anybody else. Even when I didn't feel I was the most beautiful woman that I knew I was better than this. Ferris State University, thank you. Oh, y'all put that out. But there's a museum about that, and I'm thankful. They have all these statues. There's a picture of Dr. Marion Sims, which is a Caucasian gynecologist, supposed to be the father of gynecology on Fifth Avenue. They took it down, the bust of him. But he invented all the modern day gynecological tools, experimenting on black women with no anesthesia. So you were used as experiments. They wonder, why don't black people want to take these medications, vaccine? We have common sense. It's normal for us not to trust you, but they make it seem like it's abnormal. Something's wrong with you or you're racist. No, baby, you go through that and tell me who you're going to trust. Normal people. My brother's a fireman. This is one of the guys on his job, this Irishman. He said, it's not that I don't, he said, the reason I do not believe that this all happened to black people is because no Irishman would stand for that. Like, we're going to fight you to the death. You get in this grave. If you ever saw the movie Rob Roy, those Irishmen, I give them credit, they'll fight you. They're not going to let you dominate them like that. But what they didn't understand is that you were in your own country. We were over here. We know where we were. One of the things that struck me in the movie 12 Years a Slave is when he was trying to escape and realized, I don't even know where I am. So you're dealing with the people with this kind of mindset, generation after generation of incest. Because remember, if you are with Thomas Jefferson's Sally Hemings was actually the niece of his brother. So you have sex with your own people, and that's being passed on to you. And then you begin to think black women are nothing. Look at them. You get raped, you come back, go back to your husband, just like that. What is his mind thinking? What is your mind thinking? Why don't you help me? And he's thinking, why'd you let him do that to you? Even though we both know nobody has any control. So you're dealing with the mindset of a people like this. What he did with those teachings was magnificent, astonishing for a man with a third grade education to take what he learned from F.O.I Muhammad and turn it and make it something that we could use to civilize the uncivilized. That's what we used to always say, what's the job of the civilized? Teach the uncivilized. He is the reason that I'm here. He and Sister Clara Muhammad. So when people ask the crazy questions of, these white men the devil, why you have to study history. You have to know what my people went through and how easy it was. For my generation, we said white man's devil every day. I never believed it. I didn't know any white people. And like I said, all the white people I met were always kind to me. So he was able to take us from that to that, and it was easy because, like I said, we were children, and all you just brought us the truth. He just brought us Islam. The Islam says this and that. Now, we got poorly treated in certain places. Like I said, other Muslims from different groups would say that we weren't really Muslims. We don't know this. Let me reteach these coons. But I'm not going to drop down there. That's where you want to stay there. But I don't worship anybody. I've never worshipped a man. Like I said, when I was in the Nation of Islam, I didn't worship a man then. I'm not going to worship him now when I know the truth. So what Imam Muhammad was able to do is he just gave us Islam. He didn't mix anything in it, use some special goo juice. He just gave us Islam. Give us the truth. And what I love is that he gave us the whole 12 inches, even though some people said you only get 10. But Allah gave me 12. Don't step in my way. And that's the most beautiful thing about him, is that he didn't change anything. They act like he changed Islam. No, he was the mujaddid. He revived what a lot of Muslims at the time had made. Like I remember my mother said when she first heard about Islam, all she knew was Ali Baba and the 40 Thieves and all these Aladdin movies that they would show back in the day. Nobody even heard of Islam. Nobody. There were Muslims here, masjid, actual masjid. And how did I know about Islam? And then when we come out, y'all aren't real Muslim, but you ain't saying nothing. We took the name Muhammad Ali and made it the most popular name with us. Because we were brave enough to just walk out and say, Allahu Akbar. We didn't know what we were saying. But we were brave enough to carry that. And Allah says in Quran, if you don't like me or you stop and treat me wrong or disregard what I've given you, I'm going to bring up a whole new people. And I'll love them like they love me. That's what he did. That's what the man Muhammad did. That was the pinnacle of his leadership, is that he gave us al-Islam, proper, plain, no chaser. And even like I said, people like me, I still felt like, oh my God, we need some more chains on us or something to keep us together. But he said, no, this is what Allah says. This is it. Either accept it or not. We are one ummah, but there's nothing wrong with having your own. And that's what he did. He just clarified things. He brought the reality in. You were free to follow or not. He didn't beat us over the head. He didn't do any of that. He offered us on a plate, and we picked it.
Excellent, excellent. Home stretch.
Yes.
That's the Valida. Sabree, another Sabree in the building.
Yes, I said that the last show. Y'all run deep.
Yes, we do.
I ain't never tried to get in a fight with a Sabree. It's too many of y'all.
All right.
Excellent. This is excellent. And we have come to our ending. You know what I mean? It's been a beautiful conversation. Definitely a stirring conversation.
Thank you.
It brings up a lot of good memories, a lot of history, a lot of recollections that a lot of people may not be familiar with. And for those who are familiar with it, this is definitely something that's important to keep conversations like this going. And this is what our platform is about, to keep such conversations going. And tap into a lot of these stories which are really real. They really happen. You know what I'm saying? They really happen, and it is not out of vain. It's actually out of a blessing. As we have said this evening, this whole conversation is a blessing from Allah and the Creator. That the Creator has saved a group of people, the African American, with al-Islam here in America. Nowhere else. Like you said, Sister Sajdah, nowhere else. There were communities here that were living in silo. The Polish community, the Albanians, the Arabs, they all had like little silo communities. And if you do the research, the little silo masjids in New York and in the Midwest and etc. But they weren't making a lot of noise. They were just living amongst themselves. They were happy, I guess, to live amongst their own communities, their silo. So when the nation came out, like you said, it really put Islam on the map in terms of, hey, this group of Muslims here. We're gonna call them the Black Muslim. We're gonna call them the Black Muslim because this is like, whoa, this is way above what we never saw this before. A lot of people never saw it. Even those who were other African Americans who were from the church who didn't come over to the Nation of Islam, but they had a lot of them grew into understanding and even at least appreciation for the movement, even though they weren't part of it like that inside of our community. There were people who really appreciated what took place in this country, with the Nation of Islam, and then eventually the transition to Imam Mohammed. So I think this was a very great conversation, and we definitely appreciate you, sister. We didn't really get to talk about the music. We didn't really get to talk about the music. We didn't get to talk about the music, so we're not going to leave you off the hook. We're going to have to bring you back to talk about the music. We got some Rolling Stone magazines here.
That's Michael. That's my guy, Michael.
We got some Rolling Stone magazines, and we got my man Big Daddy Kane, EPMD, and
okay.
So we got some. That's
when I was a kid.
That's what we grew up on. I mean, we were the first of that group. I mean, hip hop.
Because I'm the Big Daddy Kane.
Yeah. And that's when we had our magazines directly to us. Not somebody else's stuff, but yeah.
Yeah, rip those pages out, have it pasted on your wall.
Yeah, Sister Sadana says we need to hear Sajdah sing, man. Can we get that? Can we get an acapella, man? Or is it spot? Can we get
okay. I'll put a little preface before that. When I was growing up, I've always had this deep, booming voice, even when I was little. So
Okay.
and I was teased for it all the time. Oh, you sound like a boy. And I used to cry until I heard two people on the radio, Phyllis Hyman and Evelyn Champagne King. Those are the first women I heard with deep voices. And I said, wow. And then when I started to mimic them, I said, I can say that's Phyllis Hyman. And I said, I can sing. Okay. Then I started to like my voice. There's a spark of magic in your eyes. Fairy tales appear each time you smile. Never knew that fairy tales come true, but they come true when I'm with you. You're a genie in disguise, full of wonder and surprise. Oh, bet you by golly, wow, you're the one that I've been waiting for forever. And ever will my love for you keep growing strong, keep growing strong.
Yes, that's my sister.
Give it up.
That's my sister.
Oh, wow.
Amazing.
Yes.
Amazing. SubhanAllah, man. This is amazing. The talent that we have in this community. I mean, it's just amazing. Marsha and Bro, Deen, I said my closing remarks. I mean, we could end it with the sister with acapella, but
I just wanted to hold up the book because she had referenced this book a couple of times, so I wanted to hold up the book. I was trying to get the kids to run this book into me earlier, but they act like I was speaking another language. But I just wanted to hold up the book.
There's going to be, I believe, 4 volumes. That's the first volume. It went from the beginnings all the way to 1931. And it's good.
It's good. I think I read that book in like 2 days. It's a good book. It's definitely a good read.
There's a lot of history in that, and it goes, like I said, way back. And if anybody of any race, reads that book, you will understand the Nation of Islam, because she goes far enough back to what was going on with Black people prior to the Nation of Islam. So anybody, I don't care who you are, if you read that and still don't understand the philosophy that we were taught in the Nation of Islam, and the point of it was all for us to love each other and ourselves enough that we didn't want to be anybody else. See, I'm the kind of person, I can watch the Irish parade. If I hear bagpipes, they make me cry. I listen to country music. I watch on the Puerto Rican National Parade. I can enjoy other people's culture because I love myself. I love my own. I'm not trying to be somebody else. But the people that I find who either they try hard to be somebody else, or they're angry at everybody white and everybody. I'm actually an Anglophile. Like when I watch TV shows, I like Downton Abbey and stuff like that. I love that kind of stuff. If it's human beings being decent and dignified, I love it. But because I love me.
Right.
You know, there's a movie out now, so all of you who didn't see it, Sylvie's Love. Everybody, please watch that on Amazon. That brother knocked it out. That is the most beautiful, one of the most beautiful. I'm also a incurable romantic. That is a beautiful love story. And it's not like a Black story, which I don't like, because most of the Black stories, everybody's just screwing each other. You don't know why they're together. There's no love. This had love. This had a story. Please see that movie. That's an example of Black excellence, where you can put something out that is just universal. And the racism of that time, which is supposed to be the early 60s, late 50s, is secondary to their love story. And that's what made it beautiful to me. So please, everybody, if you can, it's called Sylvie's Love. Somebody please put up the writer, director, put it in there. Oh, what is her name? She used to be on Scandal. It's her husband. He did the movie. It's gorgeous. Cinematography is beautiful. The music is wonderful. It's just wonderful. But that's an example of Black excellence and how it can be if we focus on our story. We have a lot of stories to tell. We don't need to tell anybody else's. We don't need to be secondhand Superman.
Secondhand Superman.
Secondhand
It's a
Superman.
wrap.
Yes, it's a wrap for sure. So I'll give my closing remarks. Sis, I appreciate you. This was a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful conversation with you. Like you highlighted so many wonderful experiences from your childhood coming through the nation to Al-Islam proper and what it meant to you and what it did for the community around you and how things were. And it was inspiring. And for all of our listeners and our viewers, I just want you to take away from this conversation the story she recounted and really sit back and see what it is that you can do in your locale, in your masjid, in your community to bring some of that stuff back. Because as she mentioned, and I know a lot of us feel this way, there are certain things that we sort of like we do the baby out with the bathwater type thing. There are some things that we got away from that could benefit us as a community and would have still benefited us. But alhamdulillah, it happened the way it happened. But I really charge us all with sitting back and thinking about how we could bring some of the things that were beneficial back to our community so that we thrive again. Because I know that many of us feel like, in our masters, things are very different. They're very different and we're not as close-knit as we used to be as a collective. And I wholeheartedly believe that we can get some of that back, if not all of it. But we have to do the work. So I would say if you take nothing else from this discussion today, it would be to take the passion from which you told those stories and recounted those memories and bring it forward into the future. Now I have 7 sisters, but I gotta fit you somewhere in there because you gotta be my big sister somewhere in this mix. Now you're a year younger than my oldest sister, so I'm gonna have to squeeze you in there so that now I got 8. But alhamdulillah, I completely enjoyed this evening. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Brother Deen.
I was going to say likewise. The spirit, the wisdom, the poise, everything. It just brought another level of energy. I know as I was listening. I mean, I'm revitalized. Some of the things that we do take for granted in our history and our culture, let us not take for granted and share it to our next generation, right? Because like you said, the environment all around us, they're going to give us what they want us to give us for us to be non-productive and be like somebody else, copycats. But we have nobody could tell me anything that's contrary to what I just heard because she lived it. We know others that lived it. Our family lived it. And so though it might not be popular, though it might not be common, it's a reality for us, right? And so let's not, just because you don't have everybody cheering you on, everybody like on your team, doesn't mean that it can't be a reality again.
Appreciate that, and we want to remind the audience that to please like the New Freedom Exchange on us on Facebook, subscribe to us on our channel on YouTube, New Freedom Exchange, and hit the follow button, hit this the notification, turn your notifications on, so when we do go live, you guys will be the first ones to get the notification on your phones and your devices. And again, we appreciate Sister Sajdah Sabree. Such a brilliant conversation. Of course, so much that could be said, so much that was shared tonight in these 2 hours. I mean, we always tend to go over the time, but it's always such a good conversation. There's good vibes and good positive energy. And if we don't have any announcements, we do have a new closing song that we'd like to close out with. But Dean, if you don't have or Marsha, if you don't have an announcement.
Just Sunday, we have our community conversation series, second one of the year with Imam Rashad. We'll be addressing strategies for the community of Muhammad. And so some of the things we heard today and everything that we're looking forward to building in the future, we want to address some of it on Sunday's program. And a little FYI, I don't know if you remember, sister, but I did have the pleasure to be your driver, one time. Thanks to your brother Hakeem.
I didn't even know that was you.
Yeah, that was me. I got my little chauffeur story.
Yeah, Dean got chauffeur stories. Have that, what's that guy on, I think on
some confessions, right? Taxi cab confessions.
It's Saturday Night Live. I think it's not Saturday Night Live. It's James Corbett. He comes on after
Oh yeah, with the
and he'd be driving people around, and he'd be like freestyling, like sharing stories, stuff like that. So
yeah,
we need a segment with just Dean with chauffeuring around people and just like telling the stories like that.
You're an excellent driver and good conversationalist. Thank you.
Absolutely. And we thank your brother Hakeem for everything that he did and gave us insight and providing this platform. And anyone that's been listening to us, if you were born in the nation or you experienced Islam and you made the transition, we also would love to hear your story and your perspective. Yes. We had 3 dynamic shows. If you haven't seen the other 2 with her older brothers, check in on the archives. We had Hakeem Sabree first, and then we had just past Sunday, Mustafa Sabree. Right. So again, we thank you, Sister Sajdah Sabree, not Sajdah. Get it right, Sister Sajdah Sabree. And what's the name of the song, Hakeem, we about to drop?
It's called "Who Am I" from Big Daddy Kane. Who am I? Who am I? Because we talked about knowing ourselves and being comfortable with ourselves. I think it's appropriate that we play this song and just remind the people, who am I?
But before you play it, I just want to say one shout out to Sister Aliyah, who came on, one of the teachers also from the Nation of Islam, and Sister Tana.
Yes, Sister Tana, that's my sister. We got some, and just one quick announcement. I don't know if we have the flyer right now, but we have Islamic Weekend School coming online from the Sisters in Service. So shout out to Satana, she's one of my sisters. And so along with Amina Bay, oh God, I can't even remember now, Shay, Suleiman, and Hassana. So I just wanted to make sure that I highlight that, but maybe we'll have the flyer for our Sunday show.
We already shared it to our socials, but we will definitely have the flyer up for Sunday, though. We'll definitely have the flyer up for Sunday, sister. We didn't forget. We didn't forget.
Yeah, you did. Until next time.
It's okay. She made this time, so I just wanted to put it out there because that's my sister.
You didn't forget about the sisters, okay? So, until next time, we see you all, inshallah, on Sunday at 7 p.m., same dial, same place, same channel. Hope everyone has a great rest of your Friday evening, great Saturday, and we'll see you on the flip side. Peace. Assalamu alaikum.
A black man from the motherland, speaking a language today most people don't understand. Where no one could bother me, cause I had freedom, justice, and equality. But then one day it was taken away and I was shipped to the USA. A young brother made into a slave to harvest the middlings and clean the chitlins. Given a new name, new religion, no freedom to vote, not even to make a decision. I saw my people so raped and took out the rest of that stuff that Alex Haley talks about. They said I'm not from Asia, I'm from Africa, and all the blacks there now are just scavengers. That's the way my mind was poisoned to believe that in America blacks are inferior. A weak mind and a body of swine only adds up to being deaf, dumb, and blind. Illiterate to who, where, what, and why. So I ask myself, who am I? A native New Yorker on the streets, known for rocking rhymes to real rough beats that I found in the attic. Noisy with static, the sound that made me a hip-hop fanatic. I made a few songs that sold okay, never top 20 or plenty airplay. I came out hardcore flexing cock diesel, saw a little cash and pop goes the weasel. I had to make that change and rearrange my whole rap format, no hardcore rap. So now all the pop charts I rule over new kids on the block and Paula Abdul. I thought I made it, then my song faded, and none of the black stations ever had played it. I tried to blame it on MTV and say, damn, they co-played me for Young MC. But when you get down to it, I'm the real blame, because I wanted the fame. Money is not only the root of all evil, it's also the destruction of black people. So, conjunction, junction, what's your function? Being a scout or selling out? Look in the mirror at yourself eye to eye and say, who am I?
Nick. wanna thread a tightrope. Can't cope, don't be a dope. Have a little bit of hope. Running your scope on affairs. You have to be aware, don't flare up. Let your cup run it over. I'm not Irish. Don't need a clover to fill up my dish. Nor to make a wish, to wish on a star. They're so far. Anyway, I'm thinking about today, not tomorrow. I'm not a follower of anyone. My time has come. It's already here. My message is clear. Like the women of long ago, I am also here, also to show. I have the courage, have the strength. I'm for equal opportunity, no matter the length of time. Show me a sign. Should I rely on a subliminal message? Should I question what would seem to be lies told to me? Yes, indeed, so let me speak.
And that's coming from the daughter of Malcolm X. So black women, put it in your text so you can never let opportunity pass you by. Or even ask yourself, who am I?